Hey KU fans, welcome back to Vivint Smart Home Arena here in Utah, Salt Lake City to be exact. How'd I do?
Yeah, great. I mean, you knew the name of the arena, you knew which state we were in, and you even knew the city. So, I mean, should we just call it a night at this point?
Guy, we're going to talk about the game.
Oh, okay.
Bit, right?
Yeah. We
Kansas,
should probably
that's what
do
they're
that.
watching
we should
for.
probably talk about Kansas and Auburn.
A lot of people tune in just to hear me talk.
Definitely.
Which is pretty much the easiest thing to do since I never shut up. But I think these people watching right now want to hear about this game. Number 4 seed Kansas against number 5 seed Auburn. Late game Saturday night, and as much as that sucks for our deadline, we've got a lot of time to kind of break it down today. Leading up to the game, we'll have all kinds of stuff at KUsports.com, as you've probably already seen. But today was interesting. It's the closed practice day, right? I mean, it's
no media allowed.
We don't get to see the practice. We don't get to see the shoot around. We don't get to see if they're loose or not. But we did get into the locker room for a while, both locker rooms. And what struck me is Kansas is kind of playing this one pretty vanilla. Yeah, we feel good about where we're at. We like our chances, but we know it's going to be a tough game. I think Auburn is way more confident than that, bordering on cocky, and that's not a bad thing. To me, if you judge the two teams today anyway, based on sort of that criteria, I think Auburn is definitely the team that feels like they should win this game, maybe more than Kansas. But I do think Kansas is confident. They're just not expressing it as much. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think that probably fits kind of Auburn's personality. I mean, they are kind of, that's like what they do best. Comes on the defensive end. You have to be cocky to like turn teams over as much as they do, I think.
Yeah.
I think you have to have a little bit of swagger to what you're doing on the defensive end of the floor to make that happen. So that doesn't surprise me that they kind of came across that way. A lot of defensive-minded, hard-nosed guys that play for Bruce Pearl, and I mean,
that's it. Bruce Pearl.
Yeah, Bruce Pearl carries himself with the utmost confidence.
You're right.
Just a blast to listen to during his press conference this morning. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I just think he finally has this Auburn program like where we figured it would be once he took over.
Sure.
He did such a great job at Tennessee before things went awry there.
Good words. Good words.
And now Auburn is, and I almost mistakenly like typed Tennessee because I keep seeing Bruce Pearl, and this looks like one of those old Tennessee teams that he had that were so good.
Yeah, that's a very good call. I think the cool thing too is Kansas is going for its 4th straight trip to the Sweet 16. Auburn is going for its 4th ever.
Right.
Now, as much as this is a veteran Auburn team with experience and obviously a coach who's been there before and stuff like that, and Kansas has the young guys and the freshmen and guys who haven't been there before, I don't think you can totally separate the fact that this is still Kansas, a program that is used to this with the coaching staff and Bill Self and things like that, against an Auburn team that isn't. And these guys were in there, as much as they were cocky and confident and feeling themselves and all that, they were talking about, hey, not only would getting to the Sweet 16 be awesome for our program, but beating Kansas to do it, it's a whole other level. And so it was a mix. It was a mix of that confidence and sort of paying respect to Kansas. I don't think it really matters. Today's just all talk. It really comes down to what happens when these teams get on the floor, and let's talk about that a little bit real quick. It's basically Northeastern Part 2 on steroids because all the things that KU had to key on against Northeastern are still there. Get out to the shooters, try to dominate inside, defend the three-point shot, take care of the ball, things like that. But Auburn's just a much, much, much more athletic team, a much more dangerous team because of that. And now if you close out too hard, too fast, you get out of control out there, they've got guys that can put it down, attack the paint, either go score or draw a foul, and either one of those is problematic for Kansas. So how do you see Kansas navigating that conundrum? I mean, that's kind of a tough spot. You want to close out, but not too hard. But if you think about not closing out too hard, you might not close out hard enough. I mean, it's a tough spot.
Yeah, I mean, from just looking at it as far as from KU's defensive standpoint, I think you're right that playing Northeastern was probably a pretty good kind of warm-up.
Primer.
To what they're going to see against Auburn, just because of they have some similar strengths offensively, and KU is coming off a game where they had success defending the three-point line against Northeastern, and they took away their best shooter basically for the entire game. So that's good for KU's confidence defensively. I think the main difference is going to be that Auburn is so much better defensively than Northeastern. I mean, Northeastern was bad.
Yeah.
Auburn leads the nation in opponent's turnover percentage.
Right.
And I mean, how many games did we see KU finish with more turnovers than assists? And how many times did KU go on the road and just constantly give it away? At Iowa State, at Kansas State, at West Virginia. So I think that it's not going to be nearly as easy against Northeastern as it was against Northeastern, because there's better athletes, better preparation. And you mentioned that, you know, Auburn's not quite as well known for basketball, but they are experienced. They lost to Clemson last year.
Second round, right?
Yeah, so they would have played KU in the Sweet 16 if they had won that game against Clemson. But these guys now have experienced that. They know what this tournament is about. And I think that's where some of that confidence comes from too. That they've won a game in the NCAA tournament last year, and now they survived against that New Mexico State team in the first round here, and they've got to be feeling good that they got out of there alive. And maybe that's where some of that extra confidence comes from.
I think it's a great game. I think it's a great matchup. I think it's a coin flip type of game. I mean, I think if they both play well, let's say they both play their A game, their best game, I don't know who wins that.
Right.
I mean, I really don't. You know, Kansas, there's plenty of reasons to say Kansas could win that game. There's plenty of reasons to say Auburn could. It's what a 4-5 matchup's supposed to be, and I'm excited about that. I mean, this is a great test for KU. If they win, they will have earned something. Same for Auburn, obviously. So it just goes on down the line. I mean, there's plenty of things that you can look at that are I think taking care of the ball is the number one thing. If Kansas doesn't take care of the ball, they can't win.
Right.
If Auburn knocks in a bunch of threes, Kansas can still win. It's harder, but they can. They can't win if they turn the ball over, and that's where Devon Dotson's so huge. The ball's going to be in his hands all night, and he's got to be tough. He's got to be strong, confident, all those things. His ankle was fine. He said it today. Tweaked it toward the end of that game the other night. He's fine. Not worried about it at all. Neither was Self. Marcus Garrett was sick today. They're not really worried about that either. Bill Self basically said he's going to be fine. They kept him away from the team today. They don't want that spreading, of course. But you know, he stayed back at the hotel, got some fluids, rest, things like that. And Self basically said he better be ready. So he's going to play. And like Self said too, a turned ankle doesn't keep a guy out of an NCAA tournament game.
Right.
So Devon Dotson will be as close to 100% as you can be, and that's important. That's incredibly important for Kansas, because without him, they can't win this game either. He's got to be confident. He's got to be strong with the ball. I think it's going to be a blast. I don't like the late start for our deadline, but I also don't like it because we have to wait all day.
Yeah.
I want to see this game.
Right.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, Baylor Gonzaga's here before that. That sounds fun, too. But this one will be awesome. I think the last thing I will say is that Bill Self kind of summed it up great. Auburn's won 9 in a row, and they're hot. They're as hot as anybody. But Bill Self said, over time, we're not 9 in a row hot, but we played pretty well against Northeastern, so I think we can convince our guys that we're hot too. If that doesn't sum up this season, there's a bunch of freshmen and a bunch of young guys that don't quite know, and Bill Self just grabbing them by the hand and leading them through it, just telling them what he wants them to think and believe and feel, and they're starting to find their way. They're starting to kind of round into form. So if he has them believing they're as hot as Auburn, maybe they'll come out on the right end of this one. It's going to be interesting, though, and that's why I call it a coin flip game. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, kind of along those lines, I think they're just really starting to figure things out, because the makeup of the team changed so many times throughout the regular season, and now they kind of know who they are.
Right.
And they've been who they are for
a few weeks
now.
Right.
So it's not surprising to me that, you know, Bill Self was so happy with how they played at the Big 12 tournament and kind of used that as a jumping off point going into the NCAA tournament. So I think that they're just more comfortable with that rotation now. Guys know their roles. And you got to feel confident if you're KU. I mean, KJ Lawson comes out of nowhere and it gives you a ton of points off the bench against Northeastern. I mean, and you blow out a team, which you hadn't done in a long time. I mean, you got to be riding pretty high, which is, I think, exactly what this team needed from just a confidence standpoint. Yep,
Kansas against Auburn, 8:40, the late tip, Central Time, here from Vivint Smart Home Arena in Salt Lake. We'll be there. We'll be there all day, and we'll have all your coverage throughout the game. It's going to be fun. If Kansas wins, they go to the Sweet 16, and that is a monster accomplishment for this team. Might not be a monster accomplishment for this program. Self says that all the time. You know, you don't do anything special until you get to the Final Four, contend for a title. But for this team, winning this game would be a huge, huge thing, and make this a pretty good season with a chance to go add to it back in Kansas City. So we'll see what they can do. Auburn, number 5 Auburn against number 4 Kansas. Coin flip game. I don't know how many times I can say that. You want me to say it one more time?
Let's do it again.
One coin flip. Heads Kansas, tails Auburn. We'll see what happens. We'll see you guys there. Thanks for checking out KU Sports Extra. We'll talk to you guys again real soon.